9 Hollywood celebrities from the golden period who had remarkably poor hygiene. Those stunning faces glowed on silver screens. The dirtiest secrets of Hollywood were being concealed by them. Beneath the glitz and fancy dresses were body stink that filled rooms, breath that could kill tiny animals, and personal habits so repulsive that studios spent millions to keep them hidden. These weren't only celebrities who had bad days. Because of their art, these walking biohazards caused their co-stars to suffer. Watching these vintage films will never be the same after learning the startling truth about these golden age icons. As we reveal the 9 most repulsive celebrities to ever grace a movie marquee, prepare to hold your nose. 1 was Hadosis's king, Clark Gable. Hollywood's biggest heartthrob, Clark Gable, made women throughout the world faint with his smile. His leading ladies, however, weren't swooning with lust. They were struggling to keep from throwing up. A decaying horror show was hidden behind that well-known mustache. By age 32, Gable was wearing complete dentures. Not just partially, but completely, because of a gum infection that was so bad that his teeth literally leaped out of his head to get out. The mouth rot that resulted produced breath so poisonous that it ought to have been marked as dangerous. During their well-known kiss moments in Gone with the Wind, Vivien Leigh needs smelling salts in between takes. She then admitted to mentally traveling to another place, much like torture victims do. Kissing Clark is like French kissing a corpse that's been pickled in vinegar, Loretta Young reportedly said to her assistant after vomiting following a kissing sequence on Call of the Wild. One cameraman talked about the sensation of taking close-up shots of Gable. After a chili cook-off, it was like aiming your camera at the devils. MGM reportedly developed a special Gable breath emergency pack including mouthwash, mints, and real nasal plugs for crew members filming in cramped areas, demonstrating how studios used industrial-strength treatments. It didn't work. His poorly fitting and infrequently clean teeth held food particles, which eventually broke down into what one gaffer described as a stench that could remove wallpaper. They referred to him as a gentleman until they were close enough to smell the truth, as one studio source ruthlessly stated. Then they called him, "Oh God, not again." Keep in mind that you're watching Hollywood's best special effect the next time you see one of Gable's amorous scenes. With breath that could kill houseplants at 20 paces, women appear to be in love. I'm drinking more, though. Bob, it's good for you. 2. The human garbage barge, Marlon Brando. Acting was transformed by Marlon Brando, who also broke new ground in the field of human odor. In Apocalypse Now, the man who muttered the horror was actually talking about his own personal hygiene. Brando didn't just skip showers now and again. He regarded cleanliness as though it had offended his mother directly. His clothing were so ripe they could have been in their own zip code, and he frequently showed up on sets without taking a wash for days. During a garbage strike, one member of the waterfront crew claimed that Brando's outfit smelled like low tide at a fish market. Using his own filth as a weapon to purposefully ruin intimate moments was his worst habit. Before filming with Maria Schneider on Last Tango in Paris, he allegedly refused to clean his teeth and consumed a lot of blue cheese. He proudly declared this accomplishment at rap parties during the Missouri breaks, wearing the same undies for the duration of the 3-month filming. When he filmed Apocalypse Now, Brando had transformed into what Francis Ford Coppola, the director, referred to in private as Ascension Swamp. After he left, his trailer apparently needed hazardous waste procedures, and one set decorator admitted, "We had to burn the furniture." His performances were legendary, and I'm not lying when I say that burning it was less expensive than attempting to clean up what he left behind. So was his stink. It had layers like an onion. First sweat, then rancid food, then something that I think was actually decomposing on his body, recalled one grip who worked on several Brando pictures. Apocalypse Now co-star Dennis Hopper reportedly said after filming, "Working with Brando gave me a whole new appreciation for napalm." The tragedy of Brando was not just his wasted talent, but that a whole generation of method actors believed that smelling like month-old garbage was somehow part of the craft. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, should have been dubbed the Emperor of OD. The grease trap, as he treated personal hygiene as just another rule to break, resulting in a stench that was anything but cool. I love 3. Steve McQueen, oil slick in human form. McQueen's obsession with motorcycles and race cars extended to smelling exactly like them. Instead of taking a shower in between fixing his cars and filming, McQueen would do what his co-stars called the pit stop special, wiping his armpits with paper towels, sprinkling cologne on top of dirt, and declaring himself camera ready. He would arrive at romantic scenes covered in engine grease, transmission fluid, and what one makeup artist described as a funk so thick you could have spread it on toast. The irony that still haunts Hollywood is that McQueen was obsessed with cleaning his cars and motorcycles, spending hours polishing and perfecting machines while his own body festered. He would wipe his armpits with paper towels and then immediately return to filming, recalled one horrified set assistant. However, the paper towels only served to transfer the stench, like attempting to clean up an oil spill with a cocktail napkin. His own teeth, which one lighting technician described as the exact color of butterscotch pudding but with the texture of cottage cheese, were given less attention than his 1968 Ford Mustang from Bullitt. According to reports, his co-star in the Thomas Crown Affair, Faye Dunaway, insisted that their kissing scenes be filmed in as few takes as possible. After Dunaway compared kissing McQueen to licking the floor of an auto repair shop, the director later disclosed that this was survival instinct rather than artistic preference. Perhaps the most telling McQueen hygiene anecdote came from The Great Escape set, where fellow actor James Garner reportedly said, "The Nazis should have just surrendered when Steve took off his boots in the P. Barack scenes." The Geneva Convention was broken by that stench. When you watch McQueen's famous motorbike sequences, keep in mind that what you can't see is the eye-watering fog that followed him like cartoon stink lines rendered real. As one studio executive put it so eloquently, he made cool look easy and hygiene look impossible. "Who will I get to serve dinner tonight, Ricky? Hello, 4. The arrogant queen of dirt, Tula Bankhead. Tula Bankhead did more than merely defy expectations. She rolled around in them after dragging them in the ground. In a fight against fundamental cleanliness, Bankhead displayed her filthy habits like medals of valor, in contrast to celebrities who concealed them. "I never do the laundry. The dirt and I have an understanding." Was her real-life philosophy, not simply a clever statement. According to stage managers, Bankhead would occasionally go weeks without taking a bath, resulting in what one person called a miasma that trailed her like a devoted but unwanted pet. After her runs ended, one Broadway theater reportedly designated her dressing room as the swamp and required special cleaning procedures, making it a known biohazard. Bankhead's most well-known habit, spending decades without wearing underwear, caused anguish to gullible crews. Cinematographer Arthur Miller allegedly pleaded with Alfred Hitchcock to require her to wear panties for sequences requiring her to climb ladders during the weeks she spent working closely with other performers on Lifeboat. Hitchcock's personal quarters were famed for their squalor, and her famous answer was, "I don't know if this is a matter for the costume department, makeup, or animal control." After entering the Bankhead suite, a cleaner at the Algonquin Hotel immediately resigned, informing the manager, "I've cleaned up crime scenes that were more sanitary." An archaeological record of debauchery was created by visitors who recounted mountains of cigarette butts, empty bottles, food scraps, and discolored clothing. According to theater producer Jed Harris, she lit up a room, then cleared it out with the smell. Tula didn't just push envelopes, she pushed everyone's gag reflexes, Harris said. The way that Bankhead integrated her filthiness into her style of startling conduct was what set it apart. "Darling, if you wanted a rose garden, you should have cast one of those sanitized MGM virgins. You hired Tula Bankhead and you get all of me, including the parts that haven't seen soap since the Hoover administration," Bankhead reportedly retorted when one director subtly suggested she might think about taking a bath before intimate scenes. "Since performing at the Thousand Islands many years ago, I have not performed. Yes, I was in the business of dressing up 5. Walking distillery with legs, W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields played more than only drunks. Decades before the word was coined, he was a method actor. Fields' on-screen and off-screen were identical save for the fact that the former had a far stronger odor. Fields immersed himself in booze to such an extent that lighting technicians would anxiously check the wattage of lamps in his vicinity out of concern that he may catch fire. He started his day with a martini for breakfast. Not in place of breakfast, but in addition to it. His perspiration might have been bottled and marketed as gin by midday. One assistant director remembered that his breath smelled more than just alcohol. The odor was that of alcohol used to preserve tiny alcoholics. Co-stars compared the experience of sharing intimate scenes with Fields like being stuck in an elevator with a suit-clad whiskey still. Breathlessness was only one of the many hygiene problems caused by alcohol. A layered fragrance experience was created by the infrequent bathing of Fields, according to one costume designer. Sweat in the center, hopelessness at the top, and stale liquor at the bottom. One wardrobe worker said, "We could have wrung out his suit and served it as a cocktail, because his clothes soaked up so much alcohol at his hotel rooms turned into fabled catastrophe areas that hotel employees avoided cleaning at all costs." Fields fermented a room rather than simply leaving it. According to one hotel manager's complaint, maids reported discovering bottles concealed in every possible place, such as light fixtures, toilet tanks, and hollowed-out books. Fields doesn't age, he pickles, as the renowned filmmaker Gregory Laba has stated. Fields is essentially his own formaldehyde factory. Fields had a prosperous career despite, or maybe because of, his constant illness, albeit one that necessitated unusual concessions from studios. According to reports, Paramount planned his sequences for the early hours of the morning, not because he was more inebriated at the time, but rather because he was still officially drunk from the previous night rather than fresh from drinking, which somehow made things easier for directors to handle. The following: when you laugh at Fields' flawless comedic timing, keep in mind that the performers who shared his scenes were pulling off little miracles, maintaining straight expressions while being cropped by fumes that could remove furniture varnish. Gladys Cooper isn't there. Oh, I apologize. As you may know, Betty Davis, the two-eyed chimney, is missing. 6. I bet Davis was more than a cigarette smoker. She had human limbs and was a cigarette. An unofficial co-star in every production, the dark cloud cast by Hollywood's grande dame of drama was so persistent. Davis loved more than simply cigarettes. One director described the relationship she had as being more dedicated than any of her marriages. She smoked up to 100 cigarettes a day, treating them as if they were a supplement to oxygen. According to reports, studio accountants made a specific Davis nicotine budget for her movies that was comparable to the crew's total catering expenses. She was bright, but she smelled like wet ashtrays in a burning library. The chain smoking created not just the expected bad breath, but a miasma that permeated everything Davis touched. Actress Miriam Hopkins reportedly stated following the filming of Old Acquaintance. Davis's dressing rooms needed their own ventilation systems. Makeup artists talked about working through a constant fog that left them with what they called Davis lung, a temporary respiratory condition that cleared up only days after production wrapped, and her costumes needed specialized cleaning. That one wardrobe supervisor compared to decontamination procedures following a chemical spill. The most striking description came from filmmaker William Wyler after filming The Small Foxes. One technician said you could tell which dressing room was hers from 100 yards away. Just look for the door with the yellow nicotine streaks spreading forth like some kind of poison sun. When one young actor mentioned that the smoke made him uncomfortable during a scene, Davis reportedly fixed him with her famous eyes and said, "If you wanted fresh air, darling, you should have become a farmer, not an actor." In other words, kissing B was like licking the inside of a crematorium. I didn't direct her performance so much as survive it. Perhaps the most telling Davis anecdote involved a fire alarm evacuation during the filming of All About Eve. As cast and crew filed outside, someone noticed Davis was missing. A production assistant found her still in her dressing room smoking. When told the building might be on fire, she reportedly exhaled a perfect smoke ring and replied, "Darling, I am the fire." 7. Howard Hughes, From Playboy to Petri Dish. Howard Hughes presents the most dramatic hygiene collapse in Hollywood history. A cautionary tale of how a handsome aviator/producer became a human biohazard experiment. Hughes didn't just let himself go, he transformed into something that would make horror movie directors say, "That's a bit much." The most bizarre part of Hughes' decline was that it was caused by germophobia. The man who had dated Katharine Hepburn and Ava Gardner eventually stopped taking baths because he was so terrified of getting contaminated, somehow coming to the conclusion that complete filth was better than possibly tainted water. One former associate wrote, "He was afraid of filth until he became its most sophisticated practitioner." The billionaire's decline coincided with his mental health, resulting in a perfect storm of wealth and illness that allowed for gruesome conditions that no normal person could endure. In his last years, Hughes developed hygiene rituals that resembled the plots of rejected Saw movies. His urine was kept in carefully labeled mason jars, his fingernails grew into yellow talons that curled inward toward his palms, his hair and beard grew wild and matted with food debris, and most disturbing of all, he would sit naked in his germ-free zone, a room with a recliner in the middle, touching everything with tissues before throwing them on the floor until they formed what one appalled. Attendant referred to as a snow globe of human destruction. In the ultimate irony, former employees compared entering his sealed environments to walking into a corpse that was somehow still breathing, and the smell became so recognizable that they were able to identify which room Hughes had occupied months after he had left because it had permeated the walls. The official cause of Hughes' death in 1976 was kidney failure, but first responders reported needing therapy after discovering his body. This man, who created Hell's Angels and set aviation records, was unable to appear in public because his stench would have cleared any room instantly. His mind convinced him that cleanliness itself was the enemy, so his billions couldn't buy basic cleanliness. Hughes' transition from Hollywood's handsome playboy to human petri dish is the most extreme hygiene decline ever recorded among the elite. One paramedic reportedly quit his job that same day, telling colleagues, "I've seen car accidents with dismemberment that were less disturbing than what was growing on that man." I'm Howard Hughes. 8. Ava Gardner, beauty's rotting core. Ava Gardner, the woman Sinatra ruined his life to possess, the face that sparked 1,000 fantasies, had a secret behind her goddess image. The man who once personified glamour died in circumstances that would make a medieval peasant say, "You might want to consider a bath." Gardner's luminous beauty shone on screen, but her hygiene habits, which one MGM makeup artist compared to a feral cat and a college bachelor, smelled like discarded laundry left in a damp basement. Despite having access to Hollywood's best grooming products, Gardner approached personal hygiene with what colleagues referred to as aggressive indifference. She rarely brushed her teeth, which was her most infamous dental neglect. She confided in a makeup artist who worked on several Gardner films, "And we devised a whole system that included strategically placed mints on set, mouthwash breaks between takes, and camera angles that kept leading men upwind." One leading man even compared kissing Gardner to tongue diving into yesterday's dinner. The combination of body odor, cigarette smoke, and heavy perfume became so distinctive that crew members were reportedly able to track Gardner's movements throughout studio lots without seeing her. Gardner preferred to wear expensive French perfume over her natural scent instead of taking regular baths, creating what one director referred to as olfactory warfare, the smell equivalent to wearing a designer dress over mud-caked undergarments. She left lipstick and cigarette ash in every room and bed. According to one domestic worker, the Gardner's sleeping habits necessitated their own special procedures, with hotel staff stating that her sheets needed to be changed right away and occasionally replaced entirely because of the mixture of makeup, bodily fluids, and unexplained stains she left behind. Gardner's natural charm somehow overcame her hygiene problems, with men apparently willing to overlook any olfactory assault to be near her legendary beauty. Perhaps the most vivid assessment came from a studio executive who worked closely with Gardner during her MGM years. A goddess in the spotlight, a gremlin in the morning light. Before hair, makeup, and perfume, Ava looked and smelled like she'd been found under a bridge rather than at a drugstore counter. As one director allegedly said after a particularly trying day on set, "Ava's beauty is the perfect crime." Frank Sinatra, during their turbulent marriage, reportedly installed multiple showers in their home as part of a subtle campaign to encourage more frequent bathing, a campaign that apparently failed spectacularly. Everything else about her is so diverting that you fail to recognize how poisoned you are. Oh, I'm not sure. He's not a very good actor on stage, and he's not a very good actor off stage either. 9. Charles Lawton, the human compost heap. From Quasimodo to Captain Bligh, Lawton changed himself into some of the most memorable monsters in movie history, but Hollywood insiders say his biggest change may have been making audiences believe they weren't smelling him on screen. Costume departments established specific laws and protocols that one wardrobe master described as treating his clothes like hazardous waste that somehow needed to look like 18th century formal wear, and Lawton's body odor achieved what one director called a presence that deserved its own billing. It wasn't just the occasional actor's perspiration, but a complex ecosystem developed through strategic neglect. On particularly hot shooting days, productions reportedly scheduled Lawton's scenes in a specific order, not for narrative coherence but to reduce the number of costume changes needed, as each new outfit would be immediately contaminated. A studio wardrobe supervisor disclosed that customers had to air out his wardrobe every day. By air out, I mean quarantine in a separate room with industrial fans running continuously. It was Lawton's physically demanding acting style that made his hygiene problems especially difficult. Known for giving his all to his roles, Lawton would immerse himself in performances, creating what one lighting technician described as a lather that would make a racehorse appear somewhat dewy. Despite these difficulties, directors accepted Lawton's olfactory assault due to his unmatched talent. On witness for the prosecution, the legendary Billy Wilder reportedly told his cinematographer, "If you smell something terrible, keep rolling." This sweat, along with his bass scent, produced what Alfred Hitchcock reportedly called a sensory experience that makes suspense seem pleasant by comparison. That's just Charles reaching his emotional peak. Co-stars developed coping mechanisms that verged on performance art themselves. Marlene Dietrich, while filming witness for the prosecution, reportedly kept smelling salts hidden in her costume and would discreetly use them between takes. She later told a friend, "I wasn't acting surprise in our scenes together, I was pretending to be awake." The most noteworthy evaluation was probably given by a stage manager who collaborated with Lton in theater. It seems that he took decades to learn the location of his bathtub, but he was able to memorize a Shakespeare monologue in a single night. Historians have pointed to Lton's marriage to Else Kester from 1929 till his death in 1962 as either the greatest love story in history or proof of anosmia. These 9 legends demonstrated that scandalous affairs or secret identities were not Hollywood's most closely held secret. The fact that the most attractive individuals on film were frequently the most repulsive in real life was an eye-watering, stomach-turning reality. Audiences were persuaded that these walking biohazards were the pinnacle of desirability by the contrast between their glitzy photos and their vile realities, which is the greatest special effect in the film industry. How well the studios were able to hide these electory monsters from the public is even more amazing than how awful these stars smelled. Fans were blissfully unaware that their matinee idols and bedroom pinups were serving as human petri dishes in between takes because there was no social media or tell-all memoirs. Such abhorrent personal habits could only be tolerated by supernova-talented stars. Lesser actors would have been banned sooner than you could say basic hygiene if they had dared to appear with Gable's breath or Brando's odor. Perhaps the clearest illustration of how genius triumphed over all else during Hollywood's heyday is the acceptance of these walking health code infractions. Even everyone within smelling distance's gag responses. Remember the real heroes, the co-stars who managed to keep their loving expressions while battling their own bodies, the next time you see these legends perform on television. Frantic want to leave the property. These weren't